All right. Welcome, everybody, again to another episode of Freezin for NFC North Pod, episode 24. We are back. Division Training Camp Storylines. And we have our guest, Viking Dave, with us. And how are you doing, Dave?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on. I know you tried to get me on a couple of weeks ago. We had a little bit of an issue, but I'm here. I'm excited. I can't wait to talk some Vikings
Hey,
football.
and you got the shades on, so
You
bright
know, you
future for
know.
the Vikings.
There you go. That's the plan.
And also, welcome back to Gridiron Grubb. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, man. It's good to be back on, have some football talk. We're getting going. It's August. That's exciting.
Yeah, going to camps, hearing about camps, all that stuff that we like to soak in. It doesn't mean anything yet with games and everything, but there's always stuff to take in and just really talk about it, and that's what we're here for on Freezin for NFC North, to really talk about all issues from the division. And we are hopefully going to be joined by a Packer guest sometime tonight. If not, hopefully we'll have some people listening. We'll throw in some Packer questions. And biggest thing for me is, when we look at the training camps, there's storylines. And so we can go ahead and, start with the Vikings. They are my pick to win the division this year. I've been on that, throughout the offseason and everything. So I'm thinking the Vikings are going to win. So what are you looking for in training camp then this summer, Dave?
Well, there's a whole new coaching staff. There's a whole new, everything changed. So there's a lot to like be excited about. I think anytime you get a new coaching staff, it kind of like gets you hyped again. Like I'm sure it's the same way for you as a Bears fan, whether you think you're, a year or two away or you think you have a chance this year. It's just excitement, something new, anything new is always fun. So I'm really excited about O'Connell. Like I'm really, really can't wait to see what he can do with the offense. Um, I think Justin Jefferson, I think he's the best receiver in the league. I can't wait to see him play. Hopefully Thielen can stay healthy. I mean, if you think about the offensive playmakers that the Vikings have, to me, they're top five. I mean, you can put them with any team up there. You got Jefferson, Thielen, Osborne as number three, Irv Smith when he's healthy. I know he hasn't been, he missed last year. Dalvin Cook is still, one of the top running backs in the league. Cousins, you can hate him all you want, but he's still, good, So you bring in a new offensive coach. Think about what the offense did last year. They weren't even that great, and they had Zimmer holding them back. Now you got a guy who wants to go out there, throw the ball. He's going to force Jefferson the ball like he should because he's that kind of player. So I'm really excited to see the offense. I think they can be explosive, and that's probably my biggest excitement right now. In what I'm looking at is I just can't wait to see what the offense can do.
When you look at, from what you're hearing from camp and everything, what is the difference just overall from the coaching staff in just an overall feeling from everything Vikings?
Well, I mean, it's night and day. You got Zimmer who was wanted to run the ball, throw it when we have to, play defense. And you know what? That worked a couple of years, but this new league is passing. Like besides the quarterback, probably the most important position is a receiver right now. Like these guys are just throwing the ball. The top. Look at all the receivers that either got traded or got big paydays this year. Like those guys are important. They have to get paid, and that's part of the game now. So you got Kevin O'Connell who came over from the Rams, who I can't. I'm assuming he's bringing that offense. That's what I've heard. Jefferson's excited about it. He's supposed to be the new Cooper Kupp in this offense. So, I mean, I feel like the sky's the limit for a guy like that. It literally is just night and day. Like, I feel like going from, again, Zimmer, who just was like, let's just go 20 play drives, run it down your throat. And again, there's nothing wrong with that if it works, but that's not how the offenses are run nowadays. Like, you got to be able to throw. You got to be able to keep up. The best teams in the league every single year, the Bills, the Chiefs, like Brady in the Bucks, like these guys are throwing the ball like crazy. That's how you win games. So I'm really excited to see what can happen, and I feel like it's gonna be, again, I just think it's gonna be a completely different offense team, especially the offense.
Well, our guy Frank O'Dowd has a question here. So, where do you place Kirk Cousins amongst the top quarterbacks in the NFL? Obviously, you don't have Jared Goff, and so, but some people would say maybe he's equal. I don't know.
I mean, this has been the debate for Cousins' whole career, right? Like, to me, he's in the 10 to 12-ish range. Could he go a little bit lower? Maybe. Some days he's 15 to 20. Some days he's top 5. He has games where he's that good. I think he's a top 10-ish, give or take, QB. That's just me. People hate on him for whatever reason. I don't know why. Like, I don't really like. It's not like he throws 30 interceptions. He doesn't ever lead the league in interceptions. He's not bad. He throws for 4,000 plus yards every year. He has the longest streak of 25 plus touchdowns in the league. And you can say, well, he doesn't win a lot. Okay, but there's also a team around you. Like, Stafford didn't win a lot in Detroit. He goes to the Rams and wins like a Super Bowl. It's not a coincidence. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't just all of a sudden become great. He was already really good on a shitty team. I'm not saying the Vikings are terrible, but I feel like they're an average team the last couple of years, and hopefully he can, be better with new coaching staff that's going to hopefully test his limits.
So I'm just going to say something kind of the elephant in the room here. Both the two of you look very similar. So it looks like I've got an angel on one shoulder and a devil on the other.
Right. Yeah, you're in trouble.
So speaking of the angel, the team that NFC North hasn't really, worried about for a while. What about your thoughts on that? And obviously, Frank, our guy Frank, taking a shot at Jared Goff here, Grubb.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I know the Rams are the Rams, but Jared Goff did go to the Super Bowl with the Rams, right? So he has. It's kind of similar. The way you posed it was, they are kind of similar, and I mean they really are. Like, if Jared Goff is stuck on a good team with the Rams, he went to the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Like that. But when you have one of these middle of the road quarterbacks that has talent one day and talent one quarter and talent, that's what you're going to get, right? Like, so I think it's a little different as far as Jared Goff. I think he struggles in some aspects of the game, whereas I think Kirk Cousins just doesn't give a crap a lot of times. Like he just seems like he clocks out for some games, and so they both have their different weaknesses, right? And they both have, I would say Jared Goff has some major strengths. I think he can be an average, so you say he could be a top 15 quarterback at times. And then there's times he's a top 25 quarterback. And then there's times, he could be a top 10 quarterback. There's just these games that come out of Jared Goff that are like that. And right now, as you could tell at the end of last season, the Lions are really getting rolling on. They were getting more creative, and you've got to get creative. Jared Goff is not the guy. Basically, he's a, one or two read guy. You can't have Jared Goff back there making big decisions. And I think that's what happened a lot as the Rams went on and their offense expanded when McVay came in with Goff. As that offense expanded into a bigger realm, Jared Goff isn't made for that. He's made for kind of what Dan Campbell's coaching, right? We're going to run the football and we're going to knock you in the mouth. And Jared Goff can be that type of quarterback. I don't think Jared Goff can ever be he's not going to be the superstar quarterback of the league, but he can on a team like this, a Jimmy Garoppolo style, right? You can handle it if you can have a tough defense and you can have a run game and you can have, as long as Goff doesn't make those stupid decisions. That's where he definitely differs from Kirk Cousins, because he does make stupid mistakes that force turnovers that cost teams. That's why the Rams were fed up with him. And last year, a few times with the Lions, where the Lions had some chances early in the season, especially to get some W's on the board, there were some mistakes he made that really cost him that. So that's just where it is. I mean, again, he's not going to be a superstar. As Lions fans, that's who they were rolling with this year, right? So that's just where it was. You're going with him last year, and you're going with him this year. And then we get to see where the chips fall, right? Does he come out and does he surprise people? Do the Lions go to the playoffs this year? Do they have a chance in this division? There's questions that haven't been asked in a little while for this Lions team, that's for sure. And that's even with Stafford. You know,
Yeah, and we can definitely get back to that as well. But Frank had another comment here. If you wanted more of a passing system, Cousins wouldn't be successful quarterback. He needs a running system. Dave, I mean, it sounds like, Grubb is really saying that that's similar to, Stafford, Groff is similar to Cousins. I mean, but when you look at it, Cousins was really on an MVP pace toward the beginning of the season. So how does he sustain that throughout the season? And was a big part of it coaching, maybe?
I think a lot of it was coaching. I think Cousins is better than just a system quarterback. I think, when you think about, like, we were talking about Goff and how he goes from taking a team to the Super Bowl to not, obviously he was the Lions and his teams around you. But I think a lot of that was McVay. Like, McVay is really, really good and he's really, really smart. He puts guys in position to do good things. And that's what really smart coaches do. And I think and I hope that O'Connell is that guy. And I think Cousins is good enough to throw the ball 40 or 50 times if he has to. You got, if you're smart enough to scheme these guys open and you have the talent like a Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook, you've got talent everywhere. I think if these guys are open and they decided that that's what they want to do, I think Cousins can do that easily. I think last time I was on here, we talked about how I think he's just as good as Stafford. I think he absolutely can run the offense just like a Stafford does. And I don't know why people would think he couldn't. He doesn't throw a lot of interceptions. He's smart. He's got a big arm. He has everything you need, if the defense improves, which is obviously the hope. I mean, it can't get any worse than it was last year. It was terrible. I think Cousins can run this offense easily. I mean, think about, like, they gave him an extension. The new GM comes in, the new coach. This is basically the guy they picked. They could have traded him, and I heard that there was rumors about that. There's lots of teams that traded quarterbacks this offseason. They could have done that, drafted somebody, or just let him play out his year and drafted somebody next year, see how he does. But they decided to give him an extension. They got him for 2 years. I think that's a good, enough time for O'Connell to figure out, is this the guy? Or, in a year or two, say, okay, we're gone. I think Cousins is good enough, though, to where he's better than just a system quarterback. Like, I think he can make plays. And when you watch the highlights, as you watch the guy make throws, like, he can do it all. So
why is he so polarizing within the Vikings fandom?
Fan base? Because we haven't won. Like, if any team, it doesn't matter who you are, your team always wants someone else. If you're not winning Super Bowls or not consistently getting to the playoffs, your team's going to want somebody different. And I think anybody that's smart enough to, like, watch the games, you can see that the defense was so bad last year. The offensive line has been terrible. And yeah, when he gets pressured a lot, he makes mistakes, but think about lots of quarterbacks do. Nobody likes to hit. Tom Brady isn't good when you hit him in the mouth. How good was he in the Super Bowl? The year they broke the record for points in the league. They scored 14 points that game, and you know what I mean? Like, because the Giants were all over him. When your offensive line's not giving you time to throw, we'd play the Bears a couple of years ago, and Akeem Hicks is just in the backfield before you can take the snap. Nobody's going to be successful. So, and then, again, even when you do go down and make a drive, like last year, every game we lost was by 7 points or less, or 8, whatever it was, except for one game we got blown out. And that's because every time Cousins would go down and score a touchdown, the defense would give it up like half the time, So that's why, because unless you're going to the playoffs every year, or you're competing for championships, your fans are, half of them are going to see the smart way, which is what I am. I'm the smart one. And you just realize that it's a team game and you need defense to make stops sometimes. And yeah, sometimes you need your quarterback to make a play. What about the time he did make a play? And then Rodgers goes down and scores a one play to tie the game up after they just went 80 yards. You know what I mean? What did he do? He went back down and scored again with no time left because they knew that the defense couldn't make a stop. But that happened a lot last year. So it's not all his fault. That's just how fans are. They're never happy, pretty much, ever. Any team, unless you're the Chiefs or the Bucks right now, or the Bills fans maybe. You know what I mean? Like, you're not happy, at least consistently. You're always looking for a guy that you think can be better. And I admit, like, there's limitations on Cousins, I think, a little bit. Would I love to have a Josh Allen or a Mahomes or these guys? Yeah. How many of them are there? Just 5, right? Like, there's 5 guys where you're like Justin Herbert, like Joe Burrow, like obviously Tom Brady and Rodgers, but they're, a little older. Like, there's only a handful of those guys. They don't just grow on trees. Not everyone has one. It's not like we're the only team that doesn't have one.
It's interesting you bring up Herbert and Gridiron Grubb. Maybe you'll have some thoughts on this too, because the Chargers are always a sexy pick the last couple of years now to make the playoffs, and they haven't. And it's so interesting when we talk about quarterbacks and the narrative and how quickly it can change. Rodgers gets a pass because he has that Super Bowl. He has one. It's been a while, but he has that. He's got MVPs. He's got the talent, but he gets a pass. Mahomes has that Super Bowl. The narrative has changed for the Chiefs franchise. It's interesting when you look at Cousins, he has a chance this year to change that narrative, not only for himself, but for the Vikings. So when you look at Herbert, who hasn't been to the playoffs yet, why would you take him other than Cousins? It's just because of age, or is it like talent? I mean,
I think he. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just think he's. Again, everybody gets into this. It's the mainstream media type thing, right? Mm-hmm. So, ever since Herbert's come out, there's been he had a good rookie season, right? So he had a good rookie season, but again, like you said, like it's funny because even if you compare his rookie season, like they lost to Mac Jones, they lost to Tua, but everybody makes Herbert the better quarterback than all these guys, but they actually lost to those teams and he's so-called the better quarterback. But it's just whatever media, you've seen me probably on Twitter a little bit the last couple of days, right? So they put out these media blitzes, right? And you'll have all the same talking points. It'll be on ESPN. It'll be on NFL Network. It'll be on the Rich Eisen show. They talk about the same topics and they use the same things. And they use the same key phrases. They just do it over and over and over. And that's what they've done to Herbert. They've made him into this. Don't get me wrong. The kid is good, right? The kid is good. But some of these vets, man, and Herbert, look, man, that's lucky. You don't get that lucky that often as a rookie quarterback being a top 6 pick. And you're a rookie quarterback and you get to come into a team that looked like the Chargers did, where you have already 2 full-time number 1 receivers, basically. You've got a running back in the backfield. You've got an offensive line. You've got a defensive line. I mean, he came into a stacked team, right, that was ready to win. Phillip Rivers couldn't get it done before he retired, but this team was ready to win when Herbert came in. And, you don't get that a lot as a rookie. And I think that also shines, too, and this goes back to what Dave was saying a while ago. If you don't have the talent on the field, it's tough to do. It doesn't matter who you are. And, again, we mentioned Mahomes a while ago. Look, Mahomes looked terrible against Tampa Bay, right, in the Super Bowl, where Tampa Bay, and that's what they did. That game was won by the Tampa Bay defensive line just dominating that Super Bowl. So it can happen to the best quarterbacks because you need a team. And if you don't have that team, Herbert came into the league. Rookie quarterbacks don't get that often when you're going to be the star number 1 pick, right? You come into a team that's set up like the Jets were, like the Giants were when Daniel Jones came in, right? Trubisky at the Bears. Like the Bears were not ready to win, and now everybody knows that Matt Nagy was a big problem of why they weren't even winning Trubisky, right? So
yeah.
I mean, it's just you don't know. Coaching teams, and Herbert, he came in. He's got the limelight, right? They had the stories about him. Those are always great, right? He wrote the letter that he was going to play, NFL and all the things that it all came to fruition when he was in 5th grade. So they had all these stories about him, right? And they just built him into that. And now he even gets more props, like you said, than some, I would say, vet quarterbacks that probably do their thing and hold their business just as well or better. They just don't have the hype around him.
Well, yeah. And you talking about the Vikings, in this division, it's been Packers. And we've heard, rightly so, with Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams. This year, Davante Adams is gone. And the only thing that as a Bears fan, I just kind of sit back. I know it's not the Bears' year. And there's a lot that the Bears have to kind of build towards. But just assuming that the Packers are going to win because of Rodgers, or even looking at the division wide receivers and saying, oh, well, the Packers are better because of Rodgers. I mean, it just blows my mind. You look at it because even with the Packers, didn't they have a former Rams assistant, McVay assistant that came to coach them, correct?
Right.
I'll be honest, I don't know. I haven't paid enough attention.
Yeah, so
he's from that system.
He is. And so everyone, they were excited and about what he can do, but he hasn't really proven what he can do without Rodgers. And so it's interesting living here in Wisconsin and hearing just the talk about, well, the Vikings are going to be terrible. O'Connell can't do anything. Cousins can't do anything. And I am an impartial, well, maybe a little bit partial. I want to see the Packers lose, honestly. But what's that?
I said, right.
I like what O'Connell can bring to the Vikings. And I like, I love the Vikings receivers. They are by far the best receivers in the conference. You know, obviously, I mean, even my guy, Amir Smith-Marset out of Iowa, I don't even know if he has a place in the offense. And
he's been looking pretty good. He's been making plays.
And that's what he did at Iowa, you know. So you have that not only with Thielen and Jefferson in what they can do with Cook and everything, and then you know Cousins, you know he gets a bad rap. I think part of it is from the outside because of you know I don't know he seems to be a very conservative guy, you know, and just when you look at it, he's not the cool. He almost seems like the old guy, you know, in the room of like trying to be cool and stuff. But he's talented, and he can take a team with this talent far. And I think that they are going to win the division because of you know what Kirk Cousins and that new offensive scheme can do. And this is just from the outside, you know, looking in. I really you know think the Vikings have an edge this year.
So one thing I want to say about Cousins, as good as I think he is, I think he can exactly what you say, like conservative a little bit. Yes. And at times I wish he would just fucking sling it, man. Just like throw it to Jefferson, throw it to Thielen. Those guys, think about the year that we had Keenum. Keenum is not even good. And he just trusted those guys to go make plays. And you got guys like that, throw them the ball. That's what they want. Like, They even when they're covered, they're not covered. You know what I mean? Like, and sometimes he does it, you know, and sometimes a big play. But like, I feel like sometimes there's bigger plays to be made, and he'll take, you know, the safe route, which isn't always bad. Like this, you know, you're not turning the ball over, but I'll take a few extra interceptions if maybe you get a couple extra touchdowns out of it. You know, you take the good with the bad. But you know, that doesn't mean just be sloppy. But I'm hoping that O'Connell can teach him, say, hey, listen, like, trust your guys, make plays. If you're going to turn, you know, don't go out and throw 3 picks every game, but be smart, but let your guys make a play. That's what I'm hoping, because I feel like he's good. He could be great if he just lets loose, man. Just let it loose.
Well, and then speaking of that, then on the other side of the ball, you talked about kind of defense coming together and that being you know, question mark in camp as well for the Vikings.
Yeah, well, I mean, they were terrible last year. They couldn't stop anything. It was awful. You know, you got Danielle Hunter coming back. Right now he's healthy. He looks good. You know, we added Zadarius Smith. That's if they're healthy. Of course, it's an if. That's huge. You know, that's we just talked about how Brady looked terrible in the Super Bowl. Mahomes looked terrible in the Super Bowl. Why? Because of pressure. If you're not getting pressure, you can have Deion Sanders and you know the 2 best cornerbacks in the world back there. You can only cover for so long, right? Like, it doesn't matter what you do. So you get these guys with the pressure up front. We drafted a couple of, you know, a safety in a corner. Andrew Booth is looking really good in practice. He's in there just so he's been talking a lot of trash with some of these receivers, Jefferson and Thielen, getting in their face. And as a rookie, to me, as a cornerback in general, I feel like you got to have that in you. You gotta be confident. If you're not confident, that's probably not a good thing. So yeah, he's a rookie, 2nd round pick, but he's not scared to go up against these guys, which means he's not going to be scared to go against anybody else. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's a good thing. Lewis Cine, the rookie from Georgia, man, he sounds awesome. I will say I wasn't excited about the trade down. I really wanted Jameson Williams. I wanted him so bad. And then we traded him to freaking Detroit, basically. But Cine looks amazing. So I mean, you got, you know, guys coming back from injury, you know, a new scheme. They can't be worse. Like, you know what I mean? So what I heard this on a different podcast I was listening to earlier, Vikings one. And I honestly expect, and I don't think it's unrealistic, for the Vikings offense to be top 5. I think they'd be top. If the Vikings offense is top 5 and the defense is just average, I think this team is winning 11 games. And then let's go to the playoffs and see what happens, because I like that. I like those odds.
Yeah. What do you think, Grubb?
Vikings wise,
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about this before we went into the draft. And I think we all at that time, besides you, said, you like the Vikings, and I'm still on that boat just because, and even though as this preseason rolls out, and we're not, we're still adjusting to what's the talent around Aaron Rodgers at the moment, but there's still some pretty good talent around him. And he's the guy who can make things happen. So that's why I stuck with them during that, is to win the division. But I do have the Vikings. Like I said, we talked about this. I have the Vikings as a really good challenge. It was like a 1A, 1B type decision for me. But yeah, I think I still go with Rodgers because it's Rodgers, right? During the regular season. That's what I found, in this division is all three of our teams, when it comes to playing the Packers, blow the ones, whether we beat them once or not in the season, we blow the one that really matters against the Packers. All three of these teams do that. And so that's why the Packers, like I can't, when it matters most, Aaron Rodgers beats these three teams in the regular season when it matters most. When it sometimes early in the season, these three teams sneak up on them and they'll right? But when it matters most, it comes in the season a lot of times. All three of these teams have sessions where they choke against the Packers and could have them beat or need the win, and they don't do it. And so is this going to be the year? Yeah, I think the Vikings can sneak up there. They have such a, we were talking about this earlier, but and I'm sure we're going to get into this more with the receiving talent, but with the offensive talent that is on Minnesota is going to have to play a good game against Green Bay. Because Green Bay, again, we talked about this before we went into draft, they're going to have a good defense. Okay, they're going to have a good defense, and that they proved that last season, and they're going to have a good defense this year. So, offensive wise, on the field, I think in this division, the Vikings have that chance to beat the Packers. I don't think the Bears are there.
No,
and I don't think right now the Lions, are quite there. They're going to have a chance, I think, this year if they play like they played last year and they can hang around some of these games. I think because if getting Hawkinson back, and now obviously they won't have Jameson Williams until almost, it sounds like it's going to be at least November, and so he won't be out there. But with St. Brown and these guys, I think they have a chance to. So, and an offensive scheme this year, right? A true offensive coordinator. I think they can win some games that they shouldn't. But I think as far as this division, I do think at the end it comes down to Packers, Vikings, and towards the end of the season, that game that's going to matter is when the Vikings play the Packers. And can the Vikings do it this time? Can the Bears or can the Lions? Can one of these teams, right? The Lions played the Packers the last game of the season. Can that be an important game to a team like the Vikings, where if the division's so tight that if the Lions beat the Packers, can one of these teams actually help one of the other teams beat the Packers? That's kind of what it might come down to at the end of the season. And I think that's going to be a kudos for the Vikings if they can do that. But it's going to come down to that game towards the end of the season, Packers-Vikings.
Yeah, very well. Yeah, it could be. It's interesting. I do think this division is going to be tight. In the past, it's been Packers run away. At least from the start or whatnot. But it just without Devontae Adams, that's going to be huge for them. But you're looking at some of the storylines for the Lions. You talk about Jameson Williams, his timeline, and is that still is all right for the Lions? They've got enough receiving power right now.
Kind of, and as we've seen in the NFL, it just takes that one injury, right? So Jameson's not coming in until November, and one of these receivers gets hurt, for even a 3 or 4 game span, and then all of a sudden you're super thin, right? They're hiring one of these weird free agents off the street, and they come in for a week. So you're just looking at that type of situation. I think for the Lions is it looks okay on paper up front, but until you have the full squad like Williams there, in November, then you can. But it's just about surviving, right? So if one of these receivers for the Lions, because they don't have, that's why I like the Vikings so much, their receiving core, because they have guys, KJ Wright, these guys who have stepped in when receivers went down. When Thielen went down last year, they proved they had receiver depth, and they added
Osborne was good.
Right.
Yeah.
Osborne was good. These guys like that, man, they were good, right? So they've had people step in when Thielen and these guys, even in the past, have gone down. And so the Lions just don't have that right now.
I want to throw something in real quick. You said Osborne is good. Did Kirk Cousins make Osborne?
Oh, no. I mean, these guys are running good.
He was a late round pick, but I think he's a solid player. Like, he's a number 3. Like, I don't think he's really a number 2 type. I mean, he could be a number 2 on like a bad team. I think he's a solid player, but I think he's a good number 3, which is what he is. And, which is why I'm excited for the offense, because I think he's really, really solid, just number 3 guy.
Because I mean, we talk
that
about
can step in when you need him, like when Thielen got hurt.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, we talk about quarterbacks making receivers do well, and obviously that's Aaron Rodgers all the time, and that's a big part of why a lot of Packer fans are like, oh, we'll be fine without Rodgers, without Adams, it'll be fine, because we've got Aaron Rodgers, and he does make those around him better, but when you start at a lower level, making them better is still not going to make them great. Not even near Adams level.
Like Lazard has been great in the role that he plays in that offense, right? But that wasn't a number 1 receiver role. That was a guy who lined up. Sometimes he was even in almost tight end positions, right? He lines up kind of back in my day, we call a flanker, right? He lines up at the flanker position where he's kind of behind the tight end or behind the tackle, right? Like in a wing position, and blocking and running patterns out of there, getting lost in the mix. That's the type of receiver he's been, right? Has he made some plays downfield? Absolutely. But a lot of those, again, come from these routes that he ran from the inside of the formation and got lost in traffic, or was able to beat a safety or linebacker, right? And, what's he going to do as a number 1? Can he be a number 1? And that's what's going to.
He's not going to do well.
And that's and that's what I say. We'll find out. It's a different game when you come out and have to face the number 1 and number 2 cornerback every week, and double teams on the outside. And especially if these other receivers aren't getting it done in Green Bay, then everybody just stacks Lazard. And if these other guys can't get it done, then you're in big trouble. Yep. And Aaron Rodgers, he may have to have more of a season like Mahomes. A couple seasons where they didn't have such a great line, and he was, like they said this year. So I guess there's a report of him, backyard ball or whatever, like playground ball. Aaron Rodgers may have to play some of that this year, right? And so to get these receivers open, he's gonna. Sometimes these guys are gonna be locked up, right? You got a young guy, two young rookies that you're going to have to rely on a little bit. And what happens, camp right now, everybody gets excited, right? Every day there's 75 catches from different receivers around the league. And everybody's like, look how amazing this is. This is their 3rd wide receiver, or the guy's going to, so, well, we'll see, right? Because and then they're like, well, pads are on and they're still making the plays. And I'm like, yeah, but nobody's out there. This is preseason practice in camp. Nobody's out there actually going, running defensive schemes and doing these things,
And Christian Watson hasn't even been out there. He's been injured. So that's interesting. But that's why, getting back to the Lions, that's why I really like what the Lions did. I mean, really, I think an underrated signing for the Lions was DJ Chark. I mean, he has been a number 1 wide receiver. He has balled out, and right now on the depth chart, he is number 2 to Amon-Ra St. Brown. I've heard obviously from plenty of Lions people that, Josh Reynolds is a great pickup.
Well, absolutely. And that's why I like stretching these are stretch the field guys, right? And that's what you get in the Josh Reynolds and even, Quintez Cephus. These are guys that you can stretch the field down the sidelines. Which is going to open up St. Brown. St. Brown is going to be the Tyreek Hill of this offense, right? He's going to line up inside. He's going to line up outside. He's going to line up in the backfield. He's going to do those things. If you don't have good receivers on the outside, that doesn't matter. And, that's that's the Lions can look exciting when this happens, and then when Jameson Williams can he come in and like OBJ's Odell Beckham's rookie season? Can he be that guy that comes in like week 7, week 8, week 9 and just like blow up? Odell Beckham blew up that year, right? He didn't play till like week 6 or 7, and when he came out, he had like a good game, his first game, and then all of a sudden it was like everybody in fantasy football was clamoring over and then he was off, right? Like a rocket.
Yeah.
So and Jameson Williams come like that, like he did, and that's the hopes.
I'm going to say something that, maybe it's going to be really controversial, but when you talk about pass catchers, even in this division, I'm just, looking at it more. Yeah. When Jameson Williams comes back and, with Josh Reynolds and Cephus has been a little bit hurt, but what he can do on the field with, those 5 receivers plus Hawkinson, I'm going to say it. The Lions might have the best pass catching group in this division and maybe even close to in the NFL. I mean, just in depth wise.
Young right now. That's what I say. They got
calm down.
I'm not
all right, bring me back down. Why?
I still think even in
depth wise, that's 5, 6.
But I still think
right
even
there.
In this division, the Vikings, like we said, we're talking about Osborne, and they've got some younger guys that are down in the depth too that have been showing out for them. Like I say, they've actually proven that they've got the depth lately. Josh Reynolds he was okay again, McVay's system, right? But him and Goff are familiar with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Goff does trust him. And like I say, on these 50-50 balls in the end zone or down the field when it's important, just like Cousins does to a Thielen, right? Like Thielen it doesn't matter. I don't care how good Justin Jefferson's ever going to be, as long as Adam Thielen's going to be just like Jordy Nelson on the Packers. When there's a play to be made, that's where Kirk Cousins is going to go. Like if he needs a big play and he needs something, if they're looking to work the field and make big plays, then they're going to Justin Jefferson. But when they need that play and it's important, especially in the red zone, Thielen is an animal. Because when they need something creative, and they need a guy to work himself open, that's the guy. And so can the Lions, is St. Brown going to be that guy for them? Do they have this guy? That's what, Josh Reynolds can be trusted here and there by Goff. But to me, they got a little bit of depth, but their depth as far as their middle
elite talent,
middle road depth.
Correct.
They don't have top end depth, right?
I would agree that.
They're heavy in the middle, and that's what I say. What happens when that depth, if it gets depleted during the season? That's what worries me as far as what they have. And Hawkinson, he got hurt last year.
Mm-hmm.
That was actually a big factor for the Lions. They could,
absolutely.
If they had that guy again in games. They lost so many close games last season. If Hawkinson had been out there in important moments where Goff had a guy that he could be that guy, because look, St. Brown didn't start coming on until week 10, 11 is when he started to get his feels going. So early in the season, Hawkinson could have been that guy that Goff relied on, right? Could have been that Thielen, could have been that Jordy Nelson, which was just also Devontae Adams, right? And could have been that guy. What was Allen Robinson was supposed to be for the Bears that he never started out with, right? So can Hawkinson do that? Because if he can be that blanket, and because he's got such amazing hands, if he can be that Kelsey type, like everybody gives Mahomes so much credit, but if Kelsey wasn't Kelsey, I don't care. Patrick Mahomes would be good, yes, because he's proven that. But dude, he would not be. Kelsey has saved his butt so many times, and you just need that guy. And again, Kirk Cousins has Thielen. He needs a guy to save his butt. The game's on the line. That's the guy who saves his butt, right? And so hopefully Hawkinson can do that.
So that's my question then, going back to the Vikings then. Is Irv Smith going to be, that guy, or is he hurt again?
I love Irv Smith. He's hurt, but he had thumb surgery the other day. They say he should be back for week 1. So that's what I'm hopeful. We're hopeful for, because, last year before he tore his ACL, he had a great camp. We really expected him to break out. And Conklin was a great replacement. So he did really solid, but Irv's more athletic. He's like that playmaking tight end. That's just another weapon for Cousins to have. Jefferson, you got Thielen, you got Cook, you got Osborne, and then you got another, really fast tight end that can get in there and make plays. Hopeful. I mean, we've been hopeful for 3 years, but I mean, he was hurt last year, so you can't take that into account. So the plan, hopefully, is that he can be a playmaker in this offense. I hope he's ready for week 1.
Yeah. Well, speaking of one of the hopefully someone's kind of ready. Talk about Will Harris, Grubb. What is his status for the Lions?
Here's a young guy that, we talk about, sometimes deep sleepers and like I say, in camp, and sometimes there's too much excitement about somebody who might not even make the team, right? We see this, and, these guys are going to be on Hard Knocks, so I'm sure they're going to play this story up really well. But Will Harris at cornerback, you've had, Okudah is coming back from injury and has, he's been splitting reps with Harris, and Harris has been out there proving himself all camp long, before pads came on, after pads came on. And so this, just one of those guys that's been hidden down there on the depth chart that nobody knows about. And he's playing well, and he's proven himself. He'll obviously make the team. If you're running with the starters this late in camp, you can pretty much guarantee you're either they're looking at you to make the team or you've made the team. And I think with him splitting reps with a guy who's supposed to be one of the top cornerbacks on the team, I think that's good for him. And so he'll be a surprise probably, that nobody had really started to hear about, and we'll see how he pans out in the season. Look, this is what Dan Campbell did last year. He found some guys that they pieced together on defense that people weren't hearing about before. And it's a young team, that they got. It's basically a sophomore squad. You got a lot of, it's almost like a JV squad in high school, right? On defense, like you got your mix of like sophomores and your mix of rookies. So it's the young defense, and some of them are playing. They're playing out, and it's looking good. So, Campbell is right. These second year players, these sophomore players, are going to have to pan out on this defense, especially if they do. These rookies and second year and third year players here for the Lions on defense, it's going to look good.
Well, speaking of things that are looking good, it's always, Dan Campbell's quotes are always looking good. I mean, he's not a typical head coach that just gives you things.
Oh man, his press conferences and people, some of them you don't even make sense, right? But you're like, they just make you want to go to war for the guy. And you're like, I don't know what the hell he was talking about, but just the way he says it with such energy, man, all of his stuff gets you going, And he's got this, even with the media, right? When he stands at the podium, he just has something, that we can all like. Now he's a Lions coach, so obviously in the division now, but he's going to be like, oh, this guy's, great. But, that's not a Lion. But he is, and you got to, admit, he gets up there and he just says some things. You can just picture him in the locker room. He's just that guy that, like, he makes you want to run through a wall. And like I say, sometimes it doesn't even make sense what comes out of his mouth as far as a quote, right? But
he's talking about kneecaps.
He's
talking about pet lion, true alpha. It has to be a complete list somewhere, but I, just kind of Googled Dan Campbell quotes, and I obviously got energy. First, we start at the Genesis. Campbell's energy is he'll say energy, kneecaps. I'm sure there has to be a comprehensive list of this, and just it's amazing. It's fun to talk about.
He just gets the team. As I say, he gets the team. Even when you see media clips, he's got the team. Everybody's pumped up, and that's
so. And that's an interesting point. And we'll probably next week we'll talk a little bit more about Packers and Bears stuff. But I was at the Bears training camp, and Matt Eberflus came and took the mic and basically just said he was excited to have football Saturdays, everyone back together, and it was kind of like that, trying to be excited and get people excited, and it was a little bit corny. It wasn't quite Dan Campbell, but it was something. It's better than what we've had. And when you look at that, I'm excited that way for a Bears fan. And, when you look at the Lions, are we excited then to see them on Hard Knocks? I mean, is everyone kind of excited to see what the Lions are going to put forth on?
Yeah,
Hard
as I say, he brings such entertainment. That's why it's, I think it's going to be fun. Obviously, there's not, usually Hard Knocks, there's a lot of like controversy on the team. The Lions, they're not in a controversy state right now, right? Campbell some people are like, well, if he doesn't win this year, but I'm like, I really can't see him being in trouble in his second year, and the team has kind of played for him strong. Even if the season ends up being kind of bad this year with such a young team. I mean, you can't just say, because again, they were a surprise last year. And even if some of these games this year, they can be a surprise. And if they end up 8-9 wins, how do you fire a guy just because they didn't have a winning record, at 7 and whatever, but yeah, I think it's going to be again, you get to see these young kids. This is a young team. So there's going to be a lot of, in Hard Knocks, they get to portray those stories of these guys, talking to their families and being at camp, and the pressure that's on these young dudes, man, to make this team or to earn a position and get a paycheck and realize their dreams. That what's cool about the Lions, like I say, they're such a young team. There's going to be a lot of those stories in this, right? And a lot of the camp battles between young guys to make a team. So I think it's going to make for an interesting story. There's not as much controversy. And so I think Dan Campbell's energy is going to help change it. Kind of like one of the years, I think they did it with Gruden one year.
Mm-hmm.
And, just his energy, just you have that. And it's kind of that same type of to bring it out type guy.
Are you going to watch Hard Knocks, Dave?
What's funny is, as much as I love football, I don't really watch Hard Knocks a lot.
Yeah.
It's usually a team that I don't really care about if it's on, and I'll watch it for a little bit, but I don't get hooked on it. If it was my team, I would watch every single second. But it's just nothing against the Lions. Like there's probably stuff that I could learn, and I'm sure it's interesting. And every time every time I do happen to see it on and I watch it, I like that behind the scenes stuff. I just don't like set my TV to watch it every single week. So if it's on, I'll catch it. If it's not, I probably won't, go back and watch it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either because I don't have HBO. I don't have kind of where it's
that too.
Where it's been on. I do like that back behind the scenes stuff. When you talk about that, I really got into the USFL with my son, and there was the behind the scenes stuff, and it's so interesting to see that part of it, and even when you look at obviously this week it's the we're going to have football on Thursday night. We're going to have it's the Hall of Fame game. I mean, it's not quite football yet, but
it's
it really
football.
is.
It's football.
It is.
It's football.
When you look at the preseason games, they are behind the scenes. They are the younger players trying to make the roster, and that's fun to watch in a way as well. But you look at some of these players, and some of the stars, they don't have to play, and that's probably better.
Yeah, no, I do. I love to see that kind of stuff, and I there's always clips on Twitter of the good stuff that's happening or talk, and I'll see all that stuff. But again, I don't even know if I have HBO. It's just not something that I ever set my TV to, like I said. But I'd love to see that behind the stuff. I love the little clips and go watch this. You have to see how they handled this. And I like to watch that stuff. But I just don't set my alarm to go, oh, I have to watch this every week. But I do think it's super interesting. I love all of that kind of stuff.
All right, so a couple of just final parting things from we'll go ahead, just do the Lions and the Vikings camp things, maybe something that's a bold statement. What do you have for us, Grubb, that may be a bold statement for the Lions this year?
Well, like I said before, they can be the shocker of this division. Whether it's spoiler at the end of the year or actually spoiling it and getting in the playoffs, sneaking in, they can be that team. And to finish it, I finally found, because I thought I had this written down when we came on with the Dan Campbell quote, but this was his quote: "We'll tread water as long as it takes to fucking bury you." Now, what the hell that means, who knows? But doesn't that sound good?
It sounds cool.
Oh, yeah.
That sounds like some mafia stuff or something. Take away the mattresses. You don't know what the hell it means, but then all of a sudden you find out what it means. So, that's what I'm talking about. It's just, I mean, that's great. That's great. But yeah, we can watch the Lions sneaking up. We'll find out more as the weeks go on, but we'll be back here. So,
Dave, what do you have for some parting shots for the Vikings here?
I think they're going to win the division. I think they're the best team in the division. I think Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, and he's going to keep it competitive. But You said bold statement. You know what I want to say? Justin Jefferson is going to be the first receiver to break 2,000 yards.
Oh,
Love it. Yes. Yes.
It's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
that's what I'll leave with.
He's gonna have to get a lot of yaks.
He always does.
He's gonna have to.
He's going to make a lot of DBs yak.
There you go. That's right.
Well, it's been great talking. Obviously, all the things at training camp for the Vikings and the Lions. We'll get into more of the Bears and the Packers next week. So where can everyone find you again, Dave?
At Viking Dave 18 is my Twitter. I also do the fantasy football podcast. I actually did that tonight. That's OUS Fantasy Football once upon a Sunday. You can check that out if you're into fantasy. Come listen because I'm the best there is, and you want to hear.
Oh, nice. There we go.
Absolutely. And Grubb, where can everyone find you again?
You can find me at Gridiron Grubb, obviously on Twitter. Be restarting the podcast and everything going here over the next few weeks at Gridiron Grubb. So you can find that on Spotify, YouTube, Apple. You can find me there when that starts again this upcoming week or two. And that's it, man.
Absolutely. And once again, it's NFL Outdated. You can catch me on Twitter, on not TikTok yet, but on Instagram, YouTube, all that stuff. And I'm excited to get the season going. Still lots to talk about, even the off season. I'm excited. So once again, it's been Freezin 4 NFC North Pod, episode 24. Thanks again, guys, and we'll catch you next week.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Man, it was fun.